Historical Society. And welcome. Is everybody comfortable? You are sitting on, thank you very much, a young person. You are sitting on, for the first time, our inaugural program on these chairs. We get a lot of complaints, but you know, we got some uncomfortable looks with the old chairs. We thought we need something more comfortable, so we hope you like these. And you're definitely going to enjoy the program tonight. And before we
my chair doesn't recline.
What's that? Doesn't recline?
My chair doesn't recline.
Steve, I'm sorry about that. Yours was supposed to. No one else was.
It's if you take care of that one.
Okay. Thank you. Take care of it. Thank you. Folks, all I was going to mention the chairs. The second thing I just want to ask you to do is turn off your cell phones. You're going to want to hear every word of this tonight. So just put those on silent, airplane mode, or as we call it here, train mode. But welcome tonight. Let me introduce our board vice president, and he's, I'm sorry, one other thing I was going to mention. After the program, there'll be a question and answer period of time. If you want to ask the questions, feel free to. We'll stay as long as you want. From our guests this evening, we'll have some refreshments over here if you want to talk to them personally after the program. But think of those question and answer things as we move around the program. Let me introduce Mark Stouter, our vice president, and oversee the program tonight.
It's going nice to see everybody here tonight. We have a good crowd. Hopefully you enjoy this program. We think that Craig's going to do a great job. His introduction is Northeast Indiana native Craig Berndt has researched the railroads in Indiana's northeast and southern counties since the 1980s. He's the author of 6 railroad history books and has lectured extensively about them. So tonight we're proud to announce that Mr. Craig Berndt will take us.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes? No? Yes. Okay. Yeah, Craig Berndt. I'm a native of DeKalb County. Lived all over the world. I was in the Navy for a long time, and then I was in southern Indiana for about 10 years in city administration, and then up here I've been here since 2000. Worked for the city of Fort Wayne, retired a few years ago. I just like railroad history. I can't tell you why, but it started a long, long time ago and has continued. So I have made a number of county railroad history presentations, and I really research them. So I try to make them accurate, but they're not perfect, and I do want them to be perfect. So if there are things I'm wrong on, I need to know that. You can tell me during the show or afterwards or however you want to handle it. If you have any questions and they pertain to a particular slide, please ask it at that time so I don't have to go back 20 slides or something and try to find what you're talking about. But otherwise, if you can, we'll hold them until the end of the show, and you may find that a bunch of them are explained. So I do these pretty much in the same manner. I start out with some maps that give you kind of a regional perspective of where things are, because everybody doesn't know where all of this is. But so here's Huntington County, and gives everybody, here's Marion and Fort Wayne, and kind of tells you where everything is. And then this map comes out of a book of maps made by a company named Steam Powered Video. And they make maps of the entire United States, the railroads. And so this is the one of your county, which is very interesting in the amount of the county that never had rail service. It is just unusual. Usually counties have a more uniform rail service pattern, but that's okay. So you had 4 steam railroads. We call them steam railroads. They're diesel today usually, but it's a steam railroad to us. And then the electric railroads are interurbans. So anytime you talk to a rail historian about an interurban, they're going to say, okay, that's an electric railroad and not a steam or gasoline or whatever railroad. So these are the years that they came in. The first one here, 1856, was the red line up there, the Wabash Railroad. 1878 and 1880, the Cloverleaf down on the lower right-hand corner arrived in Warren and then left Warren 2 years later. 1882 was, which was that? Erie? Yes, Erie. And then 1908 was the Cincinnati, Bluffton, and Chicago, which is a very interesting line. The two interurbans, 1902 was this one, which was actually Fort Wayne Southwestern. Later on, it was Indiana Service Corporation. And this one down here was the Marion, Bluffton, and Eastern in 1906, and also later on Indiana Service. So we'll start out with the first one first and pretty much follow in the chronological order the railroads. So this is what the Wabash Railroad looked like at its peak when it made all of its connections. It focused on generally coming from Buffalo and up along and Michigan and running down here and getting to, well, the Mississippi River in two places. Its focus was not on going from the East Coast to Chicago like a lot of them were. Its focus was getting to the western part of the United States. Oops. Here's their timeline. Won't spend a lot of time on it, but Wabash was a notoriously unstable company. It had, as you can see, a mountain of changes, bankruptcies and buyouts and everything possible. 1964 they were leased. 1971 passenger service ended. 1991 it was gone. It was then Norfolk and Western Railway, and today it's Norfolk Southern. So we're going to kind of take a cruise from the east to the west, start at Roanoke. Don't have a picture of the depot, wasn't able to find one, but it was on the right in this picture. We're looking toward Huntington, and the road here in the lower left corner is Station Road. And this is a Sperry rail service car. It does magnafluxing and other things to check rail for rail problems, and then you can go out and fix your rail. So it's a rolling diagnostic car. And the really other interesting thing about this is this wigwag here. It literally went back and forth like this. And warned traffic. It had a light on it there, a red light, and it just went back and forth and warned traffic. I only know of one that's still in place, and it's up in Michigan. I don't know where this one went. Get to Huntington. This was the second Wabash depot. I found out very late. I was done with this and going over some things, and I find a newspaper clipping that says, no, the first depot was the end of a boarded up shed. And I have no idea where that was. So this was the second depot, built in 1870. And it's at the corner of State and Jefferson, where the current depot, the one that's the brick depot and brick and concrete, is in the same place, or about the same place. Got the Exchange Hotel is back here, and the La Fontaine is over here. Come on, thing. This is not going to be any fun. I'm going to move over here, folks. Somehow it does this, and I don't get to control it. So yeah, and here's another view of that depot, an eastbound train, so it's coming in and heading toward Fort Wayne. Another view, this is the depot that we have left today is this part here. These two bays where they handle baggage and freight are gone. I've got a date in there. What is it on there? Yeah, 1870. They were removed in 1966. And that's Nickel Plate Road 759. If you were watching the rolling PowerPoint that we had earlier, 765 also brought an excursion train through here in 1980. This was St. Louis, Wabash, St. Louis, and Pacific 213. So today, this is Jefferson Street is on the right, and the building behind that is now the newspaper building. This building is gone, of course, and the newer one that's there today is up there. Terrific photo. Another photo. So this is the freight house, which is now, is it a pizza place still? Yeah. So it's right out here out this end of the building. And we are right here. Actually, this is taken from the grain elevator that used to sit on this spot. So we're looking from the grain elevator, looking west. The passenger depot's down here, freight depot, and then I found these on a Sanborn map, and it's a coal and lime dealer, coal, lime, and an office building. And the smokestack was the city's electric power and gasification plant. They cook coal and turn it into natural gas. It's manufactured gas. This was WR Tower at the crossing of the Wabash and the Erie Railroad. It protected the crossing. They're called interlocking towers. They have all these big levers in them, and those levers have to be operated in a particular manner to tell trains on this track that they've got to stop. The trains on this track get to have the approval to continue. So that was the interlocking tower. And shortly after this picture was taken, it used to have a WR sign on it here. So this is taken when it was out of service. It had been replaced by this white concrete block building. So this was torn down shortly after this photo. And here's the elevator that we would be in today if it was still standing. And we're looking at this crossing tower. Wabash used them, Erie used them. That was a person that's up here to, manage the railroad and highway crossings in a certain area. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Another photo, this one looking toward Fort Wayne. So we're standing in Jefferson Street. That's a westbound freight train. So you see in the front here, beside the locomotive, we have the crossing guard tower watching for these and closing the gates down. Here's one of the gates. Those were all operated from this. And then we have the freight depot, now the pizza place, and here's where we are. Vess Ladig. Anybody know that name? I looked him up and found him on Ancestry.com, but it wasn't Vess. Vess was part of his name, so I guess that was his short name or something. Not what it looks like today. So here's Jefferson and State, and then this is coming down to where we are.
Court Street.
Yeah, Court Street. So these are the gates that the person in that tower that we just looked at, Vess Ladig or whoever, that's the gates they managed at the time. That photo's from the museum here. This guy is at the passenger station. There's the granary. So this is Jefferson Street, and he has here, it's hard to see, but it's a long wood pole with a V at the end, and you strung a string around those 3 points, and you tied the orders to it for the locomotive, for the train. And they go by, and if the engineer or fireman sticks their arm out and sticks it through that loop and takes it. And then they have their orders that tells them what they have to do next. Take the siding and wait for the opposing train to pass, then take the main line, whatever it is. And so he's hooping up orders to the train. And he has plenty of mail and baggage for the next passenger train. This is out on the other end of town. This is Bryant's. Is it Bryant? Or Bryant? Bryant, okay. Yeah, this is Bryant Street here. So this thing is coming at, leaving town, and it had Union Pacific and Missouri Pacific locomotives. That's real common today. If you travel around much, you'll see them all. Everybody has everybody's locomotives in exchange service. But back then, the Wabash, or I guess Norfolk and Western, was power short, and so they borrowed locomotives. Get down to Andrews. This was the first depot down there. This is a 1907 photo. Wabash built these fireproof depots, and the one that's in Andrews today, and we'll see it here later, is one of those that, because these things, you know, locomotives throughout cinders and burned them, or the potbelly stove went wild and they burned, and they got tired of replacing them, so they started using poured concrete buildings. Some block and some poured concrete. And they had pretty much a common theme, so the one that was in Roanoke was pretty similar to the one that's still standing in Andrews. Another picture of Andrews looking toward Huntington. And you see another one of these guard towers for the highway crossing. I threw this into, these are called LiDAR. They use lasers to map things, and the benefit of it is, however they work, they don't show buildings or trees. You get contours. So you look at this, and this is a high point, and these are lower points. Here's the Wabash Railroad coming through. Here's Andrews, and you can kind of see building, you know, foundations and stuff. And here is a roundhouse, the roundhouse that used to be there. If you look at that, this is the best I could find in Google Earth, and you can't tell that it's there. But the LiDAR shows it. So you go on the internet and type in Indiana LiDAR and click, and you'll find Purdue's website. LIDAR. It's wonderful when you're doing research like this, because you'll find things that you didn't find any other way. Next railroad, Erie, also a biggie. This one was focused on Chicago. So it came from New York and Buffalo, same place as Wabash, but Wabash went like this down to St. Louis, down to the river, the Mississippi. Everybody else wanted to go to Chicago. So it was pretty extensive when it got all finished. And here's their timeline, a much more stable railroad than the Wabash. So I can't find again, I found something that said the last spike was driven at Bippus, December 9th, 1882, completing the track through Indiana. 1890 it became the Chicago and Erie, then the Erie, then Erie-Lackawanna. 1968 it was controlled by Norfolk and Western. Passenger service ended in 70, then Conrail took over, and it ended in 1976. With the takeover of Conrail, Erie disappeared, Erie-Lackawanna. Erie and Western operated it for less than 2 years, and then the Chicago and Indiana operated it for 6 months, from sometime in late 1979 to I think January of 80. So let's start at Markle. Here's their depot. It was south of the tracks between Harrison and Lee Streets. Pretty much a standard Erie Railroad design. These are really, you know, beautiful with all the fretwork and everything. Just nice looking, clean looking depots. Here we are, WR Tower again in Huntington. So this train is southbound. The Erie ran north-south through Huntington. It came in from Ohio, went north through town, and then continued west toward Chicago. So it made a big sort of S-curve through town. This train's running south, about to cross the Wabash. Here's a really old photo. We found one of our Railroad History Group members in Fort Wayne found, he's Erie, plain and simple, and he found all the history on this thing. It was built in 1882 and renumbered to something else in 1890, so that puts a bracket on when this photo was taken. It had a different tender on it when it was built, and this thing's pushing a construction train, so they've put a different tender on it and put the correct number on it. This is what the original depot looked like. This is the trackside view of it. This is the street side view of it. But this would be what on Bryant Street, looking at it. Not much Bryant Street there, but that's where it is. So. Here's a view of two south/eastbound because it ran south and turned east to Ohio. And so it stopped at the depot is the far building. We'll look at it in a minute here. The closed building was railroad offices and freight. This is Market Street. Two trains running south. You look at these things and you're like, I'd like to have that car, you know? That kind of stuff helps you date a lot of these too. You know, you can look at that car and you know, that one's pretty nice looking, so that's a 68 Chevy, it must be close. But actually this one, that's mine and it's dated, so. Here we are with those buildings. So this was the company offices, and then down here they handled freight and baggage. This had a restaurant, and the depot, the passenger depot, was in that building. The office building went away in 1966. This was closed in 76 and burned in 1985, and then they demolished it. Great aerial view. So this is looking north. This goes south and then turns and goes to Ohio. This goes north and turns and goes to Chicago. So here's the roundhouse, car repair shops. Here's the yard. Here's the office building in the depot, Market Street, Bryant. And here's the Wabash Railroad crossing at WR Tower. Looks just like that today, of course. Of course, here's Old 24 and here's Condit, yeah. An undated photo looking back easterly at the roundhouse on the right side here. They had a grain elevator, car shops were over here. This one was dated 1910, it's a postcard. Some reckless kids in a Buick. Good thing none of us were ever reckless like that. Yeah, they always wore ties. You look at these photos and these people are wearing such heavy clothes and you go, how did you work? You know, it's summertime and they're wearing full wool suits. This is a great picture of shop employees in about 1910. They got band saws. I mean, the tools they used were all really ginormous. Just another couple photos. This is 4th Street, or Market, excuse me, looking north. The yards are over here. This is when things were slowing down, 1968. Erie just never, they didn't get into the electric gates and lights and stuff in places like this. And I can see why. It had to be a crazy busy intersection, and so it was easier to do it manned. And then I went out and took this picture for you so you'd be able to see what you're looking at today. So down here is, this is Market. And this is the trail, so the main line ran right down through here, so that's this. And then down in here, in a small spot down there, is that Yost Park? What is it? Yeoman Park. So that's right down in here someplace. Bippus? I'm guessing this was either brand new or they just painted it. Erie went around and painted all of their depots oxide red at one point, and it was not pretty. But this is a nice little depot. I wish I knew what color it was. And this isn't early enough, or this is too early to have been oxide red. I don't know what color Erie used. And another one in Bippus. So here's the grain elevator and one of those crossing guard towers. And the name on No, that's a different one. I'm thinking of the one that was here where we're standing and the one in Andrews were both the same people on those. And then the tile factory down below on the right. So in 1977, 76, the Erie Western took over and Erie Lackawanna was gone. So this tower tells us that we are near where the depot was up here, and right down here is WR Tower crossing at the Wabash. They operated, from what I got, I think they were actually just over in Wren, Ohio, from there to Hammond for 2 years, and then, is that right? Yeah, I think. Anyway, and then successor, Chicago and Indiana, operated July 79 to January 80. I always go dig up all the official documents on these things, the incorporation, annual reports and that. There are none for Chicago and Indiana. There's not a thing in the Secretary of State office. And I couldn't find any photos of anything. Fort Wayne to Lafayette Interurban. So these were all the electric railroads, I think at their maximum level. Fort Wayne had 5, one north, down to Lima, Decatur, Bluffton, and then to Marion, and this one that we're at here in Huntington, it went down to Lafayette. 269 miles of mainline track. This explains how they work. So you've got a wire up there called a trolley wire, you've got a trolley pole, this one is up back here, taking electricity. This car is going toward Fort Wayne, so it's taking electricity. And it was electric powered, intercity, so interurban, not in city. They didn't run the streetcars. Primarily passenger service, and in the cities, in almost all cases, the tracks ran straight down the middle of the streets. They did here. Once you got out in the country, they got off the road into private rights of way, but in towns and cities, they ran in the streets. It was great service. I mean, you walk out and get on one. They ran hourly. So you could go someplace pretty quickly just by going out of your front door and waving it down. Yeah, let's do this again. First generation coaches were heavy wooden bodies and frames. Talisman up there is at the Illinois Railway Museum in Union, Illinois. It ran through here, I'm sure, every day or so. And it's nicely redone. It doesn't run anymore, but it's a really nice looking machine. Then in the 1915 to 1925 era, they bought lighter weight, all steel. They weighed a lot less than the heavy wooden ones. Streetcars were shorter and much more utilitarian. They were the city buses versus the Greyhound or something like that. If you're going to go a long ways, you got more comfort. They operated, a couple of us have talked about this, and these operated apparently in here, not regularly, but when they had special events like out at Miami Park or other things going on in the city, they'd bring them over from Fort Wayne or bring them up from Wabash, and then they would operate briefly here in the city. That's what the line looked like, had 19 stops in 1914, ran all the way down there. Here's Huntington. Had connections with other interurbans. So they came through here in 1902. 1904, they became the Fort Wayne and Wabash Valley Traction Company. And 1911, they became the Fort Wayne and Northern Indiana, and that was after a very tragic wreck in Kingsland that had the highest mortality of any interurban wreck in the history of the United States. And to avoid total financial collapse, they reorganized and became a new company. 1920, they became part of Indiana Service Corporation. Indiana Service Corporation wound up owning 3 of the 5 interurbans and the street track in Fort Wayne, and they operated the other 2 under lease. So they actually operated everything that radiated out of Fort Wayne. 1938, they abandoned Fort Wayne to Peru. So that was the end of the line here in town, was 38. So I couldn't piece them together easily. So right here is right here. Came down out of Fort Wayne and everything. So here's Roanoke, and then you get down here and you're in town, and then you go on out, and the last place in the county was Andrews again. So here's Roanoke. That's car number 310, and it's the Fort Wayne Wabash Valley car. So that tells us it's between 1904 and 1911 when this photo was taken. That depot was at 2nd Street. So today, 2nd Street is right over here, and 4-lane US 24 is right here. And back there is the substation, and there's a little building that goes with that too. So the substation and the depot straddled 2nd Street. That's the substation. You see all this electrical stuff here, and cooling water for probably, I don't know, transformers. And then the rest of it was a repair shop. They made minor repairs to their own equipment. Great photo. This was 2nd Street. This was where the canal used to cross over. It crossed over right here on what they called an aqueduct. So the canal crossed over the creek in its own little river, So you were on flowing water going across another flowing water. And this is Allen County historian Tom Castaldi. And during this event found these were parts of what they put in for the aqueduct, and he found an interurban spike. And then this is at Vine Street. I forget what county road that is, but it's 900. Is that the stoplight?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the stoplight in Roanoke in the middle of town. So 24 is right here, and the stoplight's right behind us, and we're looking back toward Fort Wayne. Here's the depot, and then the substation on the other side. So you can see there wasn't a lot there, back in these days. So we talk about 2nd Street, it's not like it is today. But this side track, we looked on one of our official maps, and all of this trackage is on those maps. So that confirms where we're at. First car into Huntington, December 12, 1901, was the Indiana. Is this a sister to the Talisman?
I don't think so. I think that was like a palace car. The Talisman was like a palace car.
Okay.
These were more these were just,
Inner city.
yeah.
Yeah, this is very,
They started with 4 of those in service Fort Wayne to Huntington, Wabash.
4 of that car. Okay. Yeah, this is a recognizable intersection today still for everybody that lives here. You look at that and go, yep, that's Martha and Jefferson. So this is what it looked like when it came into town. It came in on what is now Business 24. So if you're leaving town on that Business 24, Old 24, the right lanes, the eastbound lanes, that's where the track went. And then it came in and it turned and it went under the Erie, as did 24. And then it turned and went down 1st Street, down Market Street, and then out of town on State. So we had a car barn and a powerhouse up here. This is where Dairy Queen? Yeah, that's Dairy Queen now, basically, that area. And then you come down here, and there were 3 different interurban stations. We'll look at all of them down in this part of Market Street. And the freight house was down here at State and LaFontaine. I think there's a trucking company or something down there at the now.
Buying checks.
Wilson.
Yes. What is it?
Wilson Real Estate in that little wedge.
Okay.
I translate.
Yeah, that's it. So this is looking kind of easterly. Here's the Erie Railroad up on its hill here over the tracks and everything. So this is where the car barn. So you had usually 1 stall for electric and 4 for mechanical, and then here's the powerhouse. So this track goes to Fort Wayne, and this track would take you downtown. The main line would be down here. in First Street. In an Interurban car, one of the steel cars, about 1930. The powerhouse was east of First Street between Division and Harrison. And it powered the line from 1901 to 1907. And then they needed more power. Instead of building additions to it, they went ahead and bought it from somebody else that could generate less expensively. So the first depot was at 261 West Market. So there's your city hall, and this is the depot. Well, here it is, excuse me, there's the sign for it. And it's about, I think there's a Swiss style building there right now today. That's about where this depot was. It's gone. The second one was at 33 West Market Street. And it's down here where this sign is. We'll see a better picture of that building later. It's still standing there. And this is depot number 3 at 221 East Market. And it was across from the Baptist Church, and it's a parking lot now, I think. This train is in Market Street, and it's at the depot number 1. There's the city hall.
That's your corner.
The freight house, so this is La Fontaine, and right here is State Street. This is Huntington and going down toward Wabash. La Fontaine there, and it's in that little triangle. So we're going back over to the other end. This is up by the powerhouse and the car barn. This was August 1930. It's 21 days before the final abandonment. And all the rail fans on Earth said, hey, we got to get a final ride. So they have 3 carloads of rail fans getting a ride from Fort Wayne to Peru and back. Peru to Lafayette was abandoned in 1932. So this was the last part left, and it was abandoned in 38. So this is coming under the Erie Railroad. And here's the Interurban, and then these 2 openings here were for US 24 at that time, which was a 2-lane road. And then the one down below is the freight house. The freight house is behind us on this track. And here's the main line. And then this is a yard track that went to something back here, we don't know what. And so this is State Street. La Fontaine is going left to right behind us. Miami Park was out west of town today, so this is now the Forks of the Wabash. Here's State Road 9 today, Wabash River coming up through here. Miami Park was on the land that is now the Forks of the Wabash. And it was an interurban park. They had a big one in Fort Wayne, and it was really successful, and they thought, well, we'll have one here, you know, and build. And they tried them in different places. They did one in Wabash. There was one rumored to be done in Logansport that never got off the ground. This one lasted a few years, what, 1905 to 1910. And your local newspaper sarcastically said, well, it got hit by lightning and all of the buildings burned. So it probably didn't get hit by lightning because the buildings weren't all adjoined, and it burned up. But today, the Chief LaFontaine house sits here. After this Miami Park went away, one of your local golf clubs bought the land, and they put a clubhouse over here, and the golf course is over on this side of 24. So golf course was north, the golf clubhouse was where the Chief LaFontaine house is now standing. Go back there a second. So this is the Wabash Railroad, and this is the Interurban that ran right along. When you turn left from here, turn left and go into Forks of the Wabash Park, you would have crossed the track right there at the edge of the road.
So it ran along the canal?
It ran on the canal towpath.
Okay.
And what they did, they called it the canal route, and what they did, they bought a lot of They bought a big, long piece of the canal because the towpath was well packed. And so they didn't have a lot of compaction to do. And so they built on the towpath as much as they could.
Okay.
And when the golf course bought it, they've got all that nicely compacted land and they just set their clubhouse on it.
Huh.
It was above the floodplain. So we get to Andrews, and we are 800 feet north of the river. This is in the middle of a field today. But when you look at Google Earth, you can, if you look at it, you kind of know where it was. You can see the discoloration of the earth in places where it ran.
That's basically 105.
Yeah, this is State Road 105 here. In better shape than today. You could go faster. Yeah, right. I get a kick out of this. This is some guy's hat. I don't know what they're doing. They got some guy's hat on the ground. So the depot was on, as you're leaving Andrews heading north, the depot was on the west side and there wasn't anything on the right side. I don't know what all of this advertising and everything is on this building. So Warren, I put, you know, it's hard to keep all these things in perfect timing, but the Cloverleaf was an early railroad, 1877. 1878 it was completed through the southeast corner of the county. And then here's all the different companies that it ran through. The yellow names are companies that actually owned it. That's the actual name of the railroad. White is something that leased it or some other thing. So passenger service on this one ended just after Norfolk and Western took it over. Then Indiana High Rail owned it in 1980, then RMW Ventures, but it was known as Wabash Central Railroad. And then just a few months ago, New Era Railroad, interesting name, they're based in Napoleon, Ohio, and they bought the track from Craigville to Weaver Popcorn, up to Van Buren. The Interurban arrived through the county here, completed from Marion to Bluffton in '06, and then became the Marion and Bluffton Traction Company, and then in 1926, Indiana Service Corporation. And it actually wasn't a good purchase, but they were desperately trying to keep the Interurbans alive, and so it only operated for 5 years before it was abandoned. So here's the Cloverleaf. We'll do that first, and it ran from Toledo down to St. Louis. That's why it had that really long name. And anyway, so it became known as the Cloverleaf. It's like a lot of railroads had nicknames. Nickel Plate was not Nickel Plate. It was another name, but it was Nickel Plate. So here's the Cloverleaf Depot at 4th Street and Western Avenue in Warren. I have a picture of it from about 1970, so it was still standing then. I don't know when it went away. Marion and Bluffton and Eastern ran from Bluffton to Marion. And then it operated the Bluffton, Geneva, and Salina, which went down to Geneva. So it leased and operated that line as well as its own line. Here's a photo of the depot in Warren. It's at 2nd and Main Streets, and as we'll see in a little bit, it's still standing. Now we get to the heartthrob of railroading in your county, the Cincinnati, Bluffton, and Chicago Railroad. This is one that should never have been built. But in spite of the name, the intent was not to go from Cincinnati to Chicago. It was, as happened with a lot of interurbans and steam railroads, a few steam railroads, they were going to make a connection here and here that was going to complete a daisy chain of railroads from Cincinnati to Chicago. So that's why the grandiose name. They weren't going to try to get to those two cities on the ends, but they were going to try to make this daisy chain of railroads that did connect everything, and it failed. So you had here a roundhouse. We'll see pictures of 5-stall roundhouse. and a depot right in the middle of downtown here, right down here at Jefferson and Riverside. Is it Riverside Drive? And that's where the depot is. So it had, its major presence was here in the city as far as maintenance of equipment was here. Freshly painted locomotive, so the roundhouse is to our right. And to our left then, so the Erie's over here someplace, and up here is the little river. And it was stable. It only ever had one name, but it didn't last that long either, 1903 to 1917, so didn't have time to get into trouble. It got here in 1908, and it was here for 9 years. This is what it looked like. It paralleled the Erie on the west side of the Erie, coming up from Markle. No, yeah, yes. Came up from Markle and came up here, and then it turned and ran in what was then Front Street, now Riverside Drive, along the north side of it actually. And then down here, before it got to the first buildings, it jogged out and went in the center of the street and ended just short of Jefferson.
The nickname for that, I think, was corned beef and cabbage.
Corned beef and cabbage. I didn't bring my books with me, but if you're going to find this stuff, there's a couple of them. Railroads of Indiana is the Bible on railroads of Indiana. They didn't cover Interurbans, but it is a very good book. And then this man named Sulzer wrote Ghost Railroads of Indiana, and everything about this one is in Ghost Railroads. So here's a map that one of our guys did after doing some research. So you come up along the Erie and you turn and run down Riverside Drive to Jefferson. Here's where they had a Y track to turn around, and this is at Taylor Street. This is Taylor. The roundhouse is here. It's actually at the end of Indiana, right in here. I looked on LiDAR and I couldn't find a thing. I mean, it's been all plowed under and recontoured, so there's nothing to show us anything. But I was able to find this on Google Earth. So this is what the roundhouse looked like. It was 5 stalls, had a repair shop and other buildings and everything back here. And again, that was at more or less at the end of Indiana. That's what it looked like. We've got a hard to see steam locomotive here and a gondola here. And then this is one of the gasoline cars. They look like the electric Interurbans or not. They were gasoline electric. So they had a gasoline engine driving an electric generator which powered the wheels, just like a diesel train engine today. A diesel train engine doesn't have diesel power. It's got electric power from generators that the diesel run on almost all. So anyway, here we are. This is the only picture I've ever seen of the roundhouse. So then we come back up here as Riverside Drive was Front Street. Came up here and the track was in the middle of the street. And here was their depot. We've got some pictures of it. Here's Etna, which now comes through here. So this depot would have been in Etna Street right at that intersection. If you go there today, it's gone. In fact, pretty much everything here is gone. The church is still there. This is gone. I think this parking lot, what's it for, a store over there? Yeah, the old Marsh store. So there's the depot. Interesting story. Here's a car on the north side of Riverside Drive, and you can see the track curving out and running down the middle of Riverside, and here's those buildings on the other side of Jefferson. Their depot is here where that truck or wagon is parked.
Craig, were they planning on going on further west?
I don't remember where they were going, but it wasn't going to go on this. This was just for access to the town, you know, to have a presence in the middle of town. I forget what they were going to try to connect to. It made it from Portland to Huntington, and that was all that it made. Never got any further than either one of those. So this is at the depot. There is the Christian church is, I don't know if it's still that, but that's what it was on the old maps. So we're in Riverside, right here is Jefferson, and this was the building that was their depot. It's car number 1. And this is an important one. Here's where the track ended, and this is Maine, M-A-Y-N-E, Maine's Grocery. And on the night of December 12, 1913, the hostler had tied this locomotive down out of the roundhouse for the night, and they keep a fire bank in them. You don't let steam engines get cold. So the hostler just keeps it warm overnight. And they put chains around the wheels and all that kind of stuff. Well, this train took off. So, you know, you got, how did it get past the chains and stuff? Well, it doesn't matter. It ran from the roundhouse up to Riverside, down Riverside. Did I put it in there? A mile? 3/4 of a mile. It ran in reverse, ran off the end of the track across Jefferson Street and lodged itself in the grocery store. In reverse. I mean, they can move on residual steam, but you know, that's a long shot. The chains and residual steam and switches and everything, yeah, probably not.
Sounds like mischievous teenagers.
Sounds like mischievous teenagers, darn teenagers. Gotta get rid of them. Great painting. This was in your library. Norman Miller painted this. It's a little bit out of proportion, but who cares? The track was in the middle of the street. He gave it some room, so you got the wagon over here at the depot, which we can't see, but there's Maine's store, where the Errant steam locomotive ran the grounds. Great painting. Here's a switcher. There's a quarry on Clark Street in Markle. We'll look at it in the map here in a minute. It's now the town swimming pool. I was really amazed. The town swimming pool is a quarry. They got a, building there for you to change clothes and everything. It had a 1 mile long side track to it, and this was one of their switching locomotives that served it. So here it comes. Here comes the Erie, and the CB and C comes down through here and crosses. Let's skip it. 2024. So we'll look at the Warren here. None of the interurbans are operating, they're gone. 2 of the 4 steam railroads are still being operated. Wabash is Norfolk Southern, and we know that this track down through here from Craigville down to Van Buren is now New Era Railroad as of last fall, November, I guess I put it in there. So this is New Era Railroad. I took this just recently down at Warren. This place is called Commodity Blenders. I don't know what they blend, but they get grain and other stuff in and make something for somebody. And it's called Commodity Blenders. Then the other one in the county is just southwest of there a little bit, just outside of Warren, between Warren and Van Buren, but it's closer to Warren. And it's a fertilizer plant, and they get in tank cars of fertilizer or something to make fertilizer just outside town. So those are the 2 businesses served by New Era in the county. And the only other 2 I know of are a very small grain elevator in Craigville, and Weaver takes something like 3 or 4 or 5 carloads of popcorn a year. Somebody told me that it's a specialty corn, and I have some familiarity with that from down in southern Indiana. And they said that it's not, they don't grow it around here, and it can't be or something like that. Anyway, they get this from outside and they package it there. But they used to be a big customer, and they're now not a big customer anymore. So here are remnants. Warren's Interurban Station, I told you, this is 2nd and Main Street. Still standing. Nice little concrete block building. That's about 2-week-old photo. Then we get down here, the Marion, Bluffton, and Eastern Main Line cross the Salamone River at Warren. And it came down Main Street and crossed over here. It's hard to see, but there's an abutment here, that's this. Then two interstream piers, and they are gone now. Somebody has taken them out. And then there's another pier on the land, it's behind right there, and there's an abutment back here that's on that private property. And then what it did is when it got over here, it swung around like this and it followed State Road 5 for the rest of its journey. So these remnants there are the piers. Here's your second interurban station at 33 West Market Street. It's this building. And we aren't sure, but they might have, probably not had a wide track here for freight deliveries or something, but they did in some cases. Parcel freight. Milo's little interurban shelter, this is a very common one. They built many of these along the line. Some of them are a little bit bigger, a little smaller, but a depot has an agent, so you can go in and buy a ticket, or a freight agent if it's freight. Shelters didn't. It was just a place for you to wait, and then you paid when you got on the car, unless you already had a ticket in hand from some other place. This is at Milo. Cincinnati Bluff in Chicago, I mentioned earlier, they had a quarry at Markle. It was nearly a mile long. So here's the area and the CB&C coming over this way. And then they had this really long spur down to here, and this is the city or the town's swimming pool now. And two of the piers are still standing here and here. So this is State Road 116. When you get off of 69, you'd get off and you head toward Markle, and then you can make that first turn and go down through their sewage treatment plant. Two big concrete blocks. Those are two of the piers for it to cross the river here. The river's actually been moved. It's down here now. They cut it off, but it's still got water in it. Then, of course, here, the Wabash Depot without the two bays over here for the baggage and freight. Yeah, here's Courthouse and Jefferson Street. Really beautiful depot. This is great too. I just took this the other day. This is your restored. What have they had? 3 fires? It's at least 2.
This last one was the second fire.
Second fire, okay. Yeah, they've had a couple of, I'm glad they've saved it. It's a beautiful building. Yeah, you can leave here and go just walk down the street here and have pizza. That's what you did. Park with the pizza and walk here. So this is the concrete fireproof depot that Wabash started building in places. And again, it's gone now, but the one in Roanoke, I've been told, was like the one here or similar to it.
It's a mirror image, from what I've read.
Mirror image, okay. So they just flip-flop the doors. And so this is a recent photo, and this is the 1950s, I think, maybe 60s, but I think 50s they were building these. It's still in railroad service. And you've got your rail trail here in town. They made great reuse of that bridge. Out northwest of town, you've got 2 trestles, bridges actually, Clear Creek and County Road 700 North. And they're both worth seeing if you can get out there. Just run out there and take a look at them sometime. And when you look at this one, I took a picture of it and I didn't see it until later. I said, there's another bridge back there. Well, it's a trail. Somebody has a pretty elaborate bridge for the trail. I guess it must have been there already.
The golf, it was part of the golf course.
Oh, is that a golf course still?
Off my main golf course is what it is.
Oh, okay, gotcha, thanks. They have too much money, guys. To have a bridge like that.
You've not played that golf.
And then this is the last one, but I went down here. If you go down here today, you can still get down to LaFontaine. It's blocked when you get there, so you got to do a backup turn and come back. But if you go down there right now, I drove down the center of the street today. I went down Market, and then you hit State, and you keep going, and you're going because the railroad ties are still under the pavement from the Interurban. They did it all over the place. When you're scrapping your track, Are old wood ties worth anything? No. So you don't take them. You take the rail and leave them, and then the city will come in later and pave over it. It happened everywhere. Everywhere I've been, I've worked in city administration 30 years. If they had interurbans, there's still track and or just ties under the pavement. That's everything. That's my email address. I answer emails. You're welcome to ask me for things. Don't ask me for every photo in there because I won't do it, but I'll. And I gave this program to the Historical Society, both in PowerPoint, and for those of you who don't have PowerPoint, it's in PDF so that you can look at it in Adobe Acrobat. So I don't know how they're going to handle that, but you're welcome to look at it. If it's not shared, it's not history. I always give a copy of all of it. That's it. Does anybody have anything you'd like to comment on? Oh, I wore my Erie shirt so that instead of my New York Central. Yeah. Please. Yep, got my Erie. It's a railroad. Well, they've got it on the radio even. So. I did see an Erie happen.
They might be interested in how much it costs to run there.
Yeah, good question. A very old place. So I wrote a book about the interurban that ran north out of Fort Wayne, and my background's in economics, so I ran a very carefully scripted study and found that at the time, that whatever year I did it for, if you had 3 people in an automobile, it was no more expensive than 3 people on the interurban car. And you can see why everybody went to automobiles, because if you ride a train, you've got to get a ride from the house to the train and then from the train to wherever you're going, so you're on rubber tires someplace. But that's what I found in doing this and people that never did that kind of analysis realized that it was still more flexible and easier. 1916 was the peak year for interurban rail mileage in Indiana, which had the second most of any state in the Union, interurban mileage. All of them peaked at 1916, and after that there might have been this much new interurban main line built, but that was it. It started going away, and it went away real fast. Today there's one interurban still running electric, and it runs from Michigan, from South Bend through Michigan City and goes to Chicago. It's called, everybody calls it the South Shore. It's actually, yeah, the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, so I call it South Shore. And that's what that is. That's the last operating interurban in Indiana. And it is a great ride. If you're going to Chicago, go up and ride the South Shore, because you drive in Chicago, you better be brave. And a good driver.
And the price of parking in Chicago.
And the price of parking in Chicago. I had to go up there for a presentation, so I did drive into town. And I got free parking because I knew what I was doing up there and everything. But I've always taken the train except there. But anyway, interurbans were great. They've been nice to keep, but they were not financially feasible after 1916.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What did they do with Erie Railroad track?
With the rails, you mean, or what?
Yeah, the rails, they scrap.
Good question. They probably didn't scrap them all. They take them up, and if they can sell them, they sell them. It depends on who's got the highest price for metal. There's no way of knowing.
In the summer of 1983, I was hired by the Department of Natural Resources to work on the old railroad period.
Okay.
And we actually snaked the ties out of the ditch, piled them up, and burned them off to zero to make a snowmobile trail until they realized that the land reverted back to the current landowners in a contract that was, 100+ years old. So, at any rate, we did several miles. We never saw any rails because they pulled all those up and scrapped them out of the stuff.
Yeah, they're going to get good money, you know, like.
We did find like a lot of insulators and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
I was at an auction sale, that's been 30 years ago, or good 25 anyway, that a guy had bought the semaphore signals off a big section of the railroad, and it was on a farm north of Fort Wayne, and so I bought pieces of it for my personal collection, but he had a wig, I think he had 2 wigwag signals and semaphore signals and stuff. They were just all in a stack. He had bought those for the scraps.
Yeah, one of the lines that I just finished writing, it's not published yet, but when their track came up, it was all sold to a sugarcane business down in Florida. They bought all the rails up from this one very large section of track, not the entire thing, but so there you are. I mean, you know, if the scrapyard offers you more than some of the railroad, then guess where it's gonna go? It's gonna go to the scrapyard, get recycled.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, interesting note, and it was to me as a young guy. The gentleman in the tower down here that had trouble with his name there, it sounded like a German name, but he was up in the tower, and those were all pumped down by hand. Those gates came down by hand. And that made me as a kid, because I wondered how he got the gates down, he's way up here. You know? But it's kind of interesting. The other thing is, at the Erie Railroad crossing, the depot, and in behind it, the building that you talked about as an office, I think that was also used as a hotel. Mostly railroaders stayed there.
Yeah, then I misunderstood that because I thought the hotel was in the depot building, so it was in that building, that second building. Okay.
It kind of looks like a hotel.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so I had that wrong. So there was a restaurant, so the restaurant was in the depot building, and is that right, or was the restaurant in the
Yes.
hotel? Restaurant was in the depot, okay, and the hotel was in there.
also,
It was their layover, their layover, because those guys don't work so many hours. and they
Yep.
lay over there.
Okay.
Or some of the guys do this.
And those towers that he was discussing, some of the ones I've seen had mechanical linkage, like cables to raise and lower the gates on the street, and other ones actually were hydraulic. You know, they had like your brake system on your car. I don't know whether they had hanging bumps or how they did it, but I've seen them. Both of them. Sure.
Then later in the 60s, my dad, he was trainmaster here for 20 years, and Erie built another block building a little farther down for the, when electronics came in and things to watch for the engines, they had the whole lighting system and everything. But that was a little farther down on Bryant Street. I think they called that the White House.
Yeah, that's the one, I mentioned it in that one
I
slide.
didn't see it.
That one also controlled the crossing after WR Railway. So we've got a guy that's a junction guru on all that, and it was still called WR. Yeah. Those telegraph call signs on towers often had some relationship to the location or the former landowner. You kind of have to look at things like, they had one in South Whitley, Indiana, and it was SY, which is the first letter of South and the last letter of Whitney. So it was SY. The one at Hoover, Indiana, I interviewed the tower operator, and I said, so was that VR tower, was that from the Vandalia Railroad crossing? He goes like this, he goes, no, it was Hoover. Oh, okay, VR. That's what he said, his lip just popped out, Ver. Okay, I got it, Hoover. So that's how you get those names. Now, where did they get WR here? Find it. It's one of those mysteries. We've got them all over. We have Hugo in Fort Wayne. Good luck. You know, where did that? I looked at all the landowners, anybody that was anything in the town. All I looked at railroad executives. No Hugos.
Question over here.
You could mention the Erie without mentioning the Erie band.
The Erie band.
Depot upstairs, they had a big room. Because my dad would take me along and I would sit down alone and watch everybody play. Before your time, Chris, I think.
Actually, no, we were just talking about that. Sometimes the Erie band would practice in that old depot in the winter. And we were always out in Myers Park in the summer. We used to have that upstairs room, and it wasn't insulated very well. I remember looking forward to sweating to death all summer at Myers Park. Bruce, you remember those?
This is just a point of interest. The Erie Railroad, in the 1940s, gave tours to Chicago and Detroit. You could go to Chicago, and the whole school system went on the train. You could go to Chicago, you could go to the ball game, you could go to the planetarium, aquarium, museum, and transportation there and back, and box lunch, $7.50.
Remember some of any Memphis people here? My grandfather was actually turned out to be the last principal of Memphis, and every year he would use that program, and they'd take a whole bunch of school kids up to Chicago. And were you one of those that did that?
There was an area?
Yeah, so that was a good program. Now, a little bit harder to do that.
Greg?
That's a good picture. Great, that's a great, that's,
Oh, yeah, nice one. I have not seen that one.
That's me on the end.
Really? Looks exactly like you. 100 years ago. Nice photo, thank you. Really good.
to see, show this in the, yes, sir.
Greg, if we go back and look at that double bridge that or the double trestle, you took the picture from the road.
Yeah,
I may be wrong. If you look at that second bridge,
the one on Clear Creek?
if you look to the north, does that not look like a right of way running along there?
This? No, let me turn it back on. Sorry.
You're right.
This?
That appears to be a right of way.
Yeah, when I first saw that second bridge in my photo, I thought, and then I saw that, I thought that was something new, but it looks more like a drainage way, but it could have been, there could have been something there.
That was the access route for the train crew to come back and come check.
Oh, this was?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was little and we were playing golf at Huntington, my dad was playing golf, I was walking along. But my dad worked on the railroad on the Erie, and he knew some of the guys that they were driving their trucks along the side. But back then they didn't all have drop down wheels on the rails. They actually used that grid, that's what that grid was for, and then it was the golf course, the stuff that just got so was able to track up there so they could go.
Okay, so that was for that bridge, that second bridge was for the railroad?
Yeah.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Thank you very much. I don't know about you, but I've been wanting to read some more books. You've written 6 books.
Yeah, I've written 6. I've written some about railroads up in the northeast corner, and then a couple down in southern Indiana. Everything I've done so far has been ghost railroads, ones that no longer exist. I'm finishing up, I just finished the manuscript for the Findlay to Fort Wayne Railroad. It's just like a cult railroad over in Fort Wayne and Findlay, but another one that should never have been built. And I just finished that, but I haven't put photos to it and everything, and I'm working on another one. So I'm 2 books past where I promised myself I was not going to write it. Yeah, Allen County Public Library has a copy of all of them, except the ones in southern Indiana.
Could you go to your last slide? Did you have an address down here?
Yeah, yeah, down here. C.J. Berndt, B-E-R-N-D-T, C.J. Berndt Gatto. And I answer questions, so if anybody has anything they want to email me.
Also, I'd like to point out, it is maybe a hard spelling to remember, but we'll have this recorded on our museum webpage. I'd like to thank Kevin Bledsoe for doing his work tonight, having it recorded so that you can see this again at your own convenience. Thank you, Kevin. And how about a hand for our